Whole lot of things that would be crimes in real Los Angeles just aren't in fake Los Angeles because they don't directly harm the NPCs. But there is one huge caveat to that. This only applies to non-police NPCs. A lot of things that will never ever get you in trouble if you do them to pedestrian NPCs, even if there's a police officer nearby, will absolutely get you in trouble if you do them directly to a police officer. They really don't like it when you do things to them. Here's a list of things that you can do near a police officer that you can't actually do towards a police officer. It includes such violent activities as honking your car horn, trying to banter with the police, and standing near them. All of these are things that a police officer does not care if they see you doing from a distance, but as soon as you do it a little bit too close, you're done. Now, there are a few possible lore explanations for this discrepancy. Not that GTA, we don't need to come up with a bunch of lore, but there are a few possible things you might take from this, right? Number one, maybe these things are crimes, but police officers just can't be bothered to do their job unless it personally affects them. That's totally possible. Another possibility is that the officers just don't actually think any of these things are harmful, so they will only arrest you if you remove plausible deniability. Like as long as you don't get too close, the officer can be like, oh, I didn't see it, that's not a big deal. But once you do it right in their face, they kind of don't have a choice but to arrest you, or else they might risk, getting in trouble with their supervisor. But I think the explanation here is actually much simpler than that. I think the underlying crime here isn't actually the things that you're doing, but specifically it's the way the officers feel about them. I think there's probably a crime on the books in Los Santos that just says, you shall not annoy the police officers, like they're pandas in a zoo. Now, how exactly that crime fits into the bigger picture we'll discuss when we actually put together our full list. But first, we've got a few other potential crimes to go over. So we've basically learned that most crimes directly involving people cause the police to be called in most circumstances. And also anything you do too close to the police will get you arrested. But what about crimes involving property, like smashing mailboxes or trespassing into people's backyards? Let's take a look at a simple case. Misdemeanor vandalism. The very first time I tried this, I used a hammer to try and vandalize this police station in front of a handful of officers, and they almost immediately got upset, pointed their guns at me, and arrested me. But then I did some more testing and I discovered something interesting. Okay, here he comes. Felony vandalism in progress. Officer... Wait, I gotta be careful. I don't want to hit him. Nothing. This man does not care. Look at that. Look at all the damage I just caused. So why is vandalism like this a crime in some circumstances but not in others? I think it comes back to what we said earlier. There's some sort of crime on the books that says you're not allowed to annoy the police officers. In one case, the police officers felt that I annoyed them because I got too close, and in the other case, it was just simple vandalism that wasn't really their business, which apparently isn't illegal. In a gameplay sense, this kind of surprised me, honestly. I figured that repeatedly pressing the attack button in any circumstance would basically cause some kind of police response every time, but it doesn't. The common denominator seems to be whether or not the police officers feel personally accosted by my actions, and if they do, it's illegal. Another thing that really surprised me was the crime of vandalism to a motor vehicle. I was also certain that calling the cops on yourself while actively attacking an empty car with a baseball bat would result in you getting arrested, but it only really happened about half the time. They would just as often walk right by me without caring at all. And there was a similar divide when you would attack a police vehicle versus a pedestrian vehicle. Now you might be thinking, well, attacking a police vehicle is probably a separate crime, like destruction of government property or vandalism of a government vehicle. And I thought that too, of course. But if you go up to a fire truck and give it a whack with a 5-iron, also known as the 5-iron whack, no police, they don't care. If you go up to an ambulance and start smashing it with a hammer, nothing. Well, sort of nothing. Technically, this group of Good Samaritans saw me smashing up the ambulance at their local hospital, and they came across the street to beat me up. So there was a consequence, just not a legal one. Shout out to community policing. I guess it's also kind of vigilanteism, but Other vehicle-related crimes include the classics of Grand Theft Auto, which is technically just called grand theft or theft of a motor vehicle in most jurisdictions. And also, of course, carjacking is illegal, which is when you steal a car while somebody's actively in it. And funnily enough, petty theft, which we're going to count as stealing a bicycle, is treated exactly the same as grand theft in this context, meaning the punishment for stealing a bike is the same as stealing a car. Vehicular homicide is also illegal, as well as vehicular assault, though as long as you're gentle, you can usually commit a little bit of vehicular assault, once or twice as a treat, but if you keep going, they will call the cops on you eventually. There are a good number of other property crimes that don't seem to be illegal as well, such as felony vandalism, tampering with a fire hydrant or utility equipment, destruction of government property like mailboxes, and tampering with an ATM machine. Now, interestingly, I did read on the GTA wiki that felony vandalism, like destroying a lot of property by smashing into it with a truck, can be a crime if a pedestrian reports you. But in all my hours of trying, I never once had the cops get called on me for this, so I'm not really sure what that's about.